Pokemon Crystal, released for the Game Boy in the year 2000, and I'm really not excited for this one. Unlike when I played Gen 1, this is not my first time playing through Gen 2, and when I did play through Gen 2, it wasn't a good time. But maybe I can put all that aside and try and enjoy myself here. Last time I made a video like this, I ranked the games on story, visuals, and music. I'm now changing those three categories to gameplay, including story in gameplay ranking, visuals, and music. We wake up and see Professor Oak again. Why not Elm? But oh my god, Oak has the cutest little guy. And then your usual Pokemon stuff happens. I get shrunk down, I talk to Mom, she sends me to the lab and I choose Totodile and name him Totoro. And then Elk immediately starts using child labor and sends me to Mr. Pokemon's house. At the house, Mr. Pokemon gives me an egg, and Professor Oak takes this opportunity to shove his flavor of child labor onto me and hands me a Pokédex. Now on my way back to Elm's lab, I run into a red-haired kid who I beat up, and he acts like he's hot shit even though he just got his face pounded in by a tiny alligator. Getting back to the lab, the police are there, and it turns out the guy I just fought stole his Pokemon from Elm. The cop asked me my name, and I named him Cheese, but for this video's purpose, I'll just call him Silver. Elm then sends me off to compete in the Pokemon Gym Challenge. I speak to Mom and ask her to save me money, which, from what I've experienced, I'll never see a dime of that money back. Now that I'm off on my journey, I catch my first little guy, which is a Sentret who I name Poof. And after I make it to Dark Cave, I add Zubat to the team, which I name Wisp. This game is pretty nice for me. All the Pokemon I want to use on my team are relatively early, and to prove that point, I walk to the grass patch immediately outside Dark Cave and catch our next team member, Dill the Hoppet. After assembling my squad, I walk into Faulkner's gym and give all his trainers the Florida experience. You know, alligators and drowning. When it came to Faulkner himself, it was a team effort, leading with Totodile to kill the first Pidgey, and then for some reason switching into Hoppip against Faulkner's cheated Pidgeotto. After realizing that's a bad idea, I switched to Sentret, who took a few tackles before dying, and then Totoro came in to finish the Pidgeotto off. I go to the Pokemon Center and get the second egg in 1 hour forced upon me before going to fight a bunch of old men and their plants in the Sprout Tower. And after a trek through routes which felt like an eternity, we made it to Azalea Town. After leveling my team and getting the coolest guy,
other Pokemon can fly,
we go clear the rockets out of Slowpoke Well. Then it's time for Bugsy. I used Zubat to kill all his bugs except for Scyther, which I paralyzed with the Stun Spore and tackled him to death with Furret. And then it was time for the rival fight, which is easy, and I spent way too long after trying to figure out the Farfetch'd puzzle that's designed for children. And it was off to Goldenrod, where I leveled my team to prepare for Whitney, evolving my starter into Croconaw and my Hoppip into Skiploom. And let me tell you, I've never understood how Whitney was considered one of the hardest fights in all of Pokemon. I used Skiploom, which is like an objectively bad Pokemon, to paralyze the Miltank, and then had 5 other Pokemon to kill him with. After Whitney, I needed to clear the Sudowoodo blockage, so I got the water to spray him with, and caught him, and named him Terry, because I was thinking about this clip at the time.
Double Sun Power!
I went to the Burn Tower and fought Silver again, which was super easy, and then activated the legendary beasts, and then went to Morty, which I used my newly evolved Crobat who had Bite to just slam through his team, at least until Gengar, who hit every Hypnosis. 60% accuracy, my ass. But I eventually killed the Gengar, and the final Haunter was a 2-shot with Bite. Now I fight 5 Asian women, who I'm convinced only exist to show off the new evolutions, and it's time for Peak Olivine City! I mean, it's time to go back to Ecruteak, because I forgot to grab Surf, and then go to Cianwood to fight Chuck, which I was worried about because I didn't have anything for water types, but he's actually a fighting type, so I just used Wisp to wing attack his entire team. After this, I fully evolved Skiploom and Feraligatr, which, I gotta talk about that name for a second. I guess it's supposed to be a mix between feral and alligator, but because of the character limit, they don't put an O in Gator, so the name just looks stupid. Anyway, I find Suicune just chilling in a corner while wandering around aimlessly, and now it's time for Peak Olivine City! I mean, time to go back to Cianwood to get medicine for Amphi so that Jasmine will do her job. And now it's time for Peak Olivine City. Now, Jasmine worried me, because I have nothing for steel types, but I just clicked Surf and it worked surprisingly well. I for sure thought Feraligatr was dead to Magnemite, but I guess not. And after another miserable hike between routes and some boring plot stuff, it's time to fight the Red Gyarados. Which I was gonna catch and add to the team, but... Now we talk to Lance, meet him at the Mahogany Town 7-Eleven, where he kills someone with his Dragonite, and then we fight Team Rocket underground. Team Rocket's been using radio signals to control Gyarados in the lake, or something, and it's our job to stop it, which we did. Only after killing a few innocent Electros, which, like, what's stopping Team Rocket from just getting 6 more and setting this thing back up? Anyways, I'm not going to use logic to play a Pokemon game, I'm going to go fight Price. I used Poof, which I taught Shadow Ball. I killed his Seal and Dugong, and then since Ice types are bad and only resist Ice, I used Totoro to kill his Chocolate Bar and Fat Pig. And now it's time to finish the Rocket plotline. I went to Goldenrod, cleared out the radio tower, and then went to the underground to free the Director, but only after embarrassing Silver for the 90th time this game, and getting past another puzzle that I spent way too much time on. The Director gives me the card key, and I return to the radio tower to defeat Team Rocket and disband them for the second time in 2 years. And now it's time to go catch the Legendary, which... I wasn't gonna use it anyways, but I accidentally killed it. So, no Suicune, I guess. With one gym left, I sprinted towards Blackthorn. And like, quick question. Why is the necessary to complete this game HM Waterfall on a random ice puzzle that you could completely miss? Anyway, clear time. And I did what I've done for most fights in this game. I Paraseeded on Skiploom, then used another Pokemon to kill it quicker. Again, I think to myself, how are these gym leaders considered some of the hardest in Pokemon? Maybe it's because I'm a grown adult playing this children's game, but hush. Moving on, I murder Claire's Seahorse, she whines and refuses to accept my win. That's the second gym leader to do that this game. So I run to the Dragon's Den, tell them I don't abuse my Pokemon, and they force Claire to give me the badge. And now it's Elite 4 time. But first, can I say thank God they removed strength puzzles from the Victory Road? I hate strength puzzles so much. In the Elite Four, I did the same as last time, where I elected one Pokemon per Elite Four member starting with Will. I used Poof since they had Shadow Ball, that ends up being pretty good against the Psychic types until he dies, so I used Crobat and Feraligatr to finish him off. In Koga, I used Terry in his debut battle. He killed 2 Pokemon pretty easily, then I sent out Crobat who died, so it was time for Poof, who's been fixing my mistakes this entire run, and he'll do so again. Against Bruno, I tried using Crobat, but the only flying type move I had was Fly, and Hitmontop had Detect, and the AI is apparently smart enough in this game to use Detect when I click Fly. So I just used Bite instead and used Dill to Mega Drain the Onix, Wisp used Fly on Hitmonchan, Machamp, and Totoro finished off Machamp and Hitmonlee. Now Karen. When I have a section talking about peak character design later, no, I'm talking about Karen. Moving on to her actual fight, it was easy. I Poison Seeded Umbreon, poisoned Houndoom, then Skiploom got burnt to a crisp. I switched to Totoro to click Surf. When Vileplume came out, I went with Fly. Terry Rock Slided the Gengar in 2 shots, and then one-shot Murkrow with another Rock Slide. And Karen hits us with the most important part. Strong Pokemon, weak Pokemon. This is only the selfish perception of people. Truly skilled trainers should win with their favorite. And that's why my team looks like this. But this team is about to walk all over Birdkeeper Lance. I Poison Seeded Gyarados and then immediately did the same thing to Dragonite before Skiploom died. I use a Horn Attack which kills the first Dragonite, and Lance sends out Aerodactyl, who dies to 1 serve. Dragonite number 2 goes down to 2 Icy Winds, and would you believe that the 3rd Dragonite dies the exact same way? And with 1 Pokemon left, Charizard, I click Surf and become the Indigo League champion for the 2nd time. And listen, this is a controversial decision, but I didn't do Kanto. It's a nostalgia-filled boss rush that takes you to Red, and Red isn't even that hard. His levels jump so hard that you're not expecting it. But if you are, he's really easy. So I just skipped out on Kanto in this run. Now, It's time for the review, and we're doing something different this video. This part of the script I wrote before I even played the game. Let's start with the Pokemon. With this many Pokemon added, you would think maybe a couple would become iconic, and some of them have, but the amount of people I've heard say that they think an iconic Johto Pokemon is from another region is crazy. People think Wobbuffet is a Gen 3 Pokemon, or Swinub is a Gen 4 Pokemon. Other Pokemon like Gliscor, Yanma, Marill, Wooper, Murkrow, Mischievous, and on. What is with these Pokemon and being so weak, too? The amount of Pokemon from this gen that later had to get an evolution because they were a 1 or 2 stage and were never worth using. Togepi, Aipom, Yanma, Murkrow, Mischievous, Girafarig, Dunsparce, Gligar, Sneasel, Stantler. One last thing about the Pokemon. Why is it that we add new Pokemon for this generation, but the gym leaders in Elite Four use like 6 Johto Pokemon total? Every gym leader should have had new Pokemon from Johto, even if Johto and Kanto are supposed to be super connected. Speaking of, why is it that in a brand new game, you have new Pokemon that get locked to the post-game? And those Pokemon aren't even worth waiting for the post-game to get. You get Mischievous on Mount Silver, the last location in the game. All of the new Pokemon should have been in Johto. And what's with the level curve? Since I was playing with the level cap, I actually had a chance to notice how bad the level caps are. It's because they open 3 gym leaders at the same time, so they all have to be incredibly weak, and the trainers have to be incredibly weak, because they don't want you to wander into a random level 50 when you're not prepared. And god, the grinding would have been awful. This game is the specific reason that I chose to allow myself to cheat in rare candies, because I was not grinding this game legit. Now, this is the part I've wrote after I played the game, and my main points still stand. The levels are weird. You have to go to the Lake of Rage and defeat the Red Gyarados before you do Team Rocket in Mahogany Town. But the Red Gyarados is level 30, and the Rockets are all like level 15. And speaking on the Rockets, the whole Rocket plotline feels really bad here. Like, you see them twice in the game. Once at Slowpoke Well, and then when you raid their base and the radio tower after the 7th gym. There's none of the build-up. Now for the good stuff. The Pokemon design philosophy seems to have really been figured out between Gen 1 and now. The sprites are more consistent, especially now at this point that the anime has solidified some of the Pokemon's designs, and although some of the Pokemon are in a forgettable gen, they're still amazing. I used some of my favorites here, and it made me happy seeing Skiploom's stupid face every time I went into battle. The city design didn't change too much from Red and Blue, but I can let that slide because some of the big landmarks are amazing. The Ecruteak Theater, Burn Tower, and Lighthouse are great examples. And getting into the music, it's wonderful. If it wasn't obvious earlier, the Olivine City theme is one of my favorites out of any Pokemon game, and for game mechanics, adding 2 new types to counter the Psychic type was nice, but there's not a lot of representation in those types. There's only 6 Dark types and 4 Steel types, 2 of those Steel types being new evolutions. And rapid fire all the game mechanics that were added that I like. Shinies, Friendship, Pokerus, the special stat change into special attack and special defense, and now it's time for the rating. Gameplay is a 3 out of 10. The Rocket storyline is just bad and confusing. Moments like having to go to Cianwood, to Olivine, up the Lighthouse, and then back to Cianwood are also bad story. It would be better to bundle your objectives together, and maybe you can, but the game doesn't communicate that in any meaningful way. And writing this script was horrible because nothing happens between gyms except for the 2 Rocket team events, and that's it. The game is mechanically better than Red and Blue, but it feels like such a slog. The way levels are dispersed and the Pokemon that are given to trainers doesn't feel good. Music is a 7 out of 10. As much as I love some of the music, I can't justify ranking it higher than I ranked Yellow's music. They're on a very similar level technologically, and they're not composed any differently. And visuals, I'm giving a 10 out of 10. The art design is amazing, the new Pokemon designs are amazing, and the city and character design, like I mentioned earlier, Karen's design is amazing. This leaves us with the total score for 20 out of 30, plus 1 to all the innovations on Generation 1. So a 21 out of 30 and a C tier rating.